The next focus area we're going to talk about is frequent releases, which can be used in any environment, but are particularly important and common in an agile environment. So what are their advantages? What are the benefits of having frequent releases? Well, the first one is that it can deliver early benefit. So we're all familiar with the term quick wins. And how do you get a quick win? Well, you deliver early, and you can get more quick wins by delivering early again. So that's the idea behind the quick releases, is deliver a minimum viable product and then add functionality as you can, as quickly as you can, to deliver more benefit. It also, if you think about the lean startup that we talked about, allows for feedback. So you deliver something, you get feedback, you can apply the lessons learned to the next stage. The longer a period of time between releases, you're really creating risk, because the longer the period of time of a development, the longer a period of time that something can change, so that when you come to deliver, it's not actually what was requested when you started, but the world's changed and it's not actually what's needed anymore. So the more you can shorten that delivery time, the more likely it is that when you deliver what was requested, the world hasn't changed in between, so it's what's needed, and you can get that feedback for the next bit of development. That it also gives confidence. So if the development team goes away and says, right, yeah, we know what we're doing, we'll see in 6 months' time, then what evidence does the customer have that they're progressing, that they're actually going to deliver? So again, if you can break the product down into frequent releases, and you're delivering something in a smaller period of time, be it every week or every month. And we need to be careful, because there's an overhead in delivery. So having too many releases would affect the project as well. And this is why there isn't a right and a wrong answer. It's what's applicable for your project, but getting that balance right of having frequent releases so that you can deliver benefit, you can learn from the release, you can apply those lessons learned to the next release, you're reducing risk. Again, if you spend 6 months and deliver something that isn't right, you potentially wasted 6 months. If you spend a month and deliver something that's not right, you've only wasted a month, and you've only wasted a month in terms of getting the feedback that it wasn't right and what you should be doing. And that ties in very nicely with lean startup. It improves stakeholder engagement. So the stakeholders, the customer, they can see things progressing, they can see what's been delivered. They'll be happier, like I said, rather than if you go in, lock yourself in a room for 6 months and then come out and go, oh, there you are, and they go, oh no, that's not what I meant, and the world's changed, it's not what we need anymore. And it can make releasing easier. So as I said, there's an overhead in releasing. You don't want to do too many releases, but if you are releasing on a regular basis, frequent releases, you become better at it. That becomes almost your business as usual for your project, if you like. Is business as usual on the project is frequent releases. We do a release every month. Or now, whether it's appropriate to do that and to say, in software type environments, that can happen, where we say, well, we'll do a release every month and it's periodic. It might be more applicable just to say, the next release will be in a month's time, the next release will be in 6 weeks' time, the next release will be in 3 weeks' time, not having fixed periods of time, but just the appropriate amount of time in order to deliver whatever the next piece of functionality is. It does need to be planned, and I just talked about that. Really, you need to plan as is appropriate for your project. Product-based planning is obviously recommended by PRINCE2. and can help in that. You start off with your project product, you break it down into products, you have your work breakdown structure, and the work breakdown structure is great to be able to say, okay, that's in scope, that's out of scope, but also for the things in scope, that's release 1, that's release 2, that's release 3. And as you come to each release, planning that release in more detail and planning and defining the products in more detail for that release as you go through. And again, as we've talked about with contracts, you can tie that in with the contract if necessary in a commercial environment, and for each release create a more detailed contract or subcontract or schedule for that particular release. The last point is quite interesting. A release may not go into an operational environment. I do have specific experience of that working with the nuclear power industry, where we were releasing software, command and control software for the nuclear power stations, and and to an agreed schedule. We'd release the software to them, they'd say, yes, thank you very much, and they'd test it all to make sure they were happy with it. They'd pay us, but they wouldn't necessarily put it into operational use straight away. And typically what they would do is wait for downtime in the nuclear power station, i.e. when they weren't generating power, then they would put it into operational use. But they wanted it there and ready, because although they had planned downtime, they also had unplanned downtime. So if there was an unplanned downtime, they'd say, oh, we've got an opportunity, we can put the software on now. A few more points on frequent releases. So the first point is releases should be shown on plans, and I think that's common sense really. I'm sure you would do that as a experienced project manager. You would show when you're going to release products. Different views need to be taken into account when planning releases, and you will find that different stakeholders in the organisation will have different views. So if you were delivering a new sales system, for instance, the sales director quite possibly would be very keen to get it as soon as possible. But if that sales system interacted with the finance system, and as soon as possible was around year end, the finance director might well say, well, actually, I don't want you to implement that new sales system just before year end because we're finishing up year end books, and really I want all that out of the way. I don't want any risk to us being able to publish our annual accounts at the point when we're legally obliged to, and so on. So that's just one example, but typically across the organisation, different stakeholders will have different views, and it will typically fall into those sorts of things in terms of some stakeholders will be viewing the benefits, and there'll be other stakeholders who are maybe more focused on the risks of delivery and will therefore want to delay, and as they see it, to mitigate the risks and make sure the organisation is prepared and ready for delivery. There may also be logistical reasons for delaying release. So if you were working in retail and you had a project to create the next season's collection, so it's clothing retail and you're doing autumn 2015 collection, you need to deliver that at the appropriate time for the stores. So typically you'd work backwards and say, well, they need to be on the shelves for 1st of September, which means they need to be at the store so many weeks beforehand so that the store staff can get trained if they need particular training about the new collection, and work your way back from that. But clearly we don't want to deliver too early, because if we deliver too early, it might get mixed up with the summer collection, it might confuse people, we might not have storage at the stores, so they need to be kept in the warehouse. So all those things, kind of standard project planning really, but if we're thinking about frequent releases, we need to think about those things. So again, in that retail environment, lead time is very important. So I know some stores where the lead time for a particular collection is basically 12 months. So if they want autumn 2015 collection in store on 1st of September, they need to start the design process 1st of September 2014. Now, that's very unagile, and it doesn't allow them to change, to react to changes in fashion, to react to changes in environment, be it weather or whatever else is going on in the retail environment. A more agile view would shorten that lead time greatly, and would maybe even allow if we were looking at frequent releases, would maybe, rather than just having an autumn collection 2015, you might be releasing every month to make that a more agile environment. But what would be the impact on the store in terms of putting new items out, taking new items away? So they're the sort of things that need to be thought about. So just sticking on the retail example for a moment, on enabling products to fail fast if it's going to fail. You've got a new retail product, whatever it is, you want to get it into your stores. Maybe you just put in a certain selection of stores, and I know a lot of retail organisations do this. They'll select a number of stores, try a product out. If it's successful, then they'll roll it out to all their stores. If it's not, then they'll try the next thing. And the final point, releasing into operational use, is the ideal situation. Otherwise, a staging area needs to be used. So I talked about the nuclear power example. In retail, it might be products might be released to a warehouse before they actually go to store. Compromises Agile to agree? Yeah, I guess it does, but just-in-time manufacturing really is all about managing the supply chain and having the right product or component at the right stage in the supply chain at the right time. And that certainly involves sophisticated management of logistics and warehousing and so on. And that's really quite just-in-time manufacturing is arguably quite an agile environment. And obviously things like Kanban and a Kanban board say, we've got 100 widgets. When we get down to 10 widgets, we need the next shipment of widgets to fill us back up so we don't run out of widgets. That's arguably an agile environment. So you need to think about those things for your particular project.